next hour. Thanks, Jen. So before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Okanagan Syilx people. We recognize, honor, and respect the presence of Indigenous people, past, present, and future. Hi, everybody. My name is Kathy Burrell, and I'm an entrepreneur in residence here at WeBC. My background is retail. I was a fashion designer and then a retailer and a wholesaler. So I know what you're doing here today. Very interesting. Okay. So I wanted to invite you all to write in the chat whose traditional territories that you're on today. Jen is going to post a link that actually, just in case you don't know, it'll be in there for you. And while we're doing that, I just wanted to let everyone know that if there's a topic that you're interested in, that you think WeBC should do a webinar on, we would really encourage you to include that at the end of the webinar in our feedback poll. So go ahead and if you've got a burning question about a webinar that you're dying to see, we'd love to see it at the end. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we offer here at WeBC today. We provide support for your small business journey, and we offer financing to get your business started and operating capital to fuel your growth. So we kind of support you in every way. We offer more flexibility than traditional lenders because we take a holistic approach and provide loans based on your business's viability rather than a bank's formula. So we can provide loans for a variety of businesses. And if you're curious, go to our website at we-bc.ca/business loans for women, and there'll be more information there. We also, if you were to get a loan with WeBC, we provide you with free integrated services, including complimentary training, mentoring, and business advising. From essential business skills development to personalized business advice, we know the right questions to ask you and the right resources to connect you with. For example, today's webinar. In our mentoring programs, you can connect with a network of women entrepreneurs and experts all around BC. And I would encourage any of you who have been in business for a couple of years, if you're not looking for a mentor, but maybe you'd like to volunteer as a mentor for WeBC, we would love to have you. We always have more women looking for mentors than we do have mentors available. You can learn more about all of our services at we-bc.ca, and we're going to have that contact information all throughout today's session. Now, while you're on the website, we would love you to sign up for our e-blasts. We send out one email every month that lists all of our webinars and seminars. You can usually sign up right from the e-blast, and it's a really great way to keep in touch with WeBC and also to know what other women around BC with businesses are doing. Okay, so let's get started. Today's webinar. All right, welcome to our panelists. Today, we'll be talking about creating a bid for the government and presenting the bid to the government. You'll be watching the procurement process in real time and learn how to evaluate bids against the criteria found in a tender or an RFP. And I will let Stephanie tell you what RFP stands for. You'll see what makes a bid stand out. And that's, again, what's so important about you and your business. You need to stand out, and so do you in this process. And what common mistakes to avoid so that you can continue to improve your bidding strategy as you get more and more government contracts while making the best use of your time, because really it is a process. So we want you to be able to do it quickly and efficiently. So I'm delighted to welcome Stephanie Waters, Project Officer Procurement Assistance Canada, which I know that acronym PAC. And also with us today is Thomas Leboeuf and Daphne Yu, and they're both supply specialists with Vancouver Commercial Acquisitions. So welcome to Stephanie, Thomas, and Daphne. I'll hand the webinar over to Stephanie. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Stephanie Waters. I'm with Procurement Assistance Canada. I hope that you've been able to join us for our previous 2 sessions this summer, which means you are an expert on everything that I do. But if not, welcome, and we will get you up to speed in no time. Just a note about Thomas and Daphne. They're both joining us from the procurement side of things. So as usual, we will be sharing contact information, but you will only be seeing mine. That is because Daphne and Thomas both manage their own tenders. So they are the person to ask questions about the point of contact on those specific tenders. Anything more general will come to PAC. And if you have questions about other tenders that you don't see Daphne or Thomas's name on, you will be wanting to reach out to the contracting authority for that tender in particular. So we have them today. They are an awesome resource. We are so excited that they are joining us. This is the first time that we have them in a webinar that we've come together in a space like this. So we will absolutely be taking advantage of everything that they know, hopefully. But just so you know, when the email comes out, you will see my name. Reach out to me if there's anything that I need to go back to them and ask about. Feel free, or I will do that for you. But yeah, just don't be alarmed. When it's just me, I will do my best to answer as per usual. But yeah, with that, we will be taking a look at a solicitation document for a request for proposal. This is something that you would find if you're just on Canada Buys. You see a tender that you're interested in, and then this is the now what. This is what happens next. You've decided that this is something you want to do, and how do you take that next step and figure out if you're able to do it, if this is, within your capacity, within your scope, and how you'd be putting that bid together, and what Thomas wants to see when it rolls across his desk. So with that, we will skip through all of the searching phase, because again, if you were here a couple weeks ago, you are already an expert. If you are not familiar with that stage of the game, come talk to me. I will get you caught up. No worries. Yeah, so with that, I will share. This is the solicitation document that we'll be working through. This is a pretty standard, what you'll see when you open it, basically. So I won't go through all of it. Again, we only have an hour. If we wanted to go through every page, it would probably take closer to 3. But I will skip through a couple of things that you should just notice. And with the caveat, of course, of if you see a line in this solicitation that absolutely sends you into a frenzy of I can't possibly get my head around that, it might not be in the next one, or it might not be in the one before this. Every tender, every solicitation document is going to be very, very different. So just because this one has a certain way of evaluation, a certain clause or whatever, don't feel like that's going to be a blanket for everyone you'll see. So don't worry too much. If there's something in here that worries you, just be aware of it, check it out in the next one, see if it is applicable. So this is our table of contents. You will know that. The first thing that comes to mind, it's going to be on the very first page. It's going to tell you how you're going to submit your bid. So that is good to know. If the bid closes tomorrow and you need to send it in by mail, or you need to drop it off somewhere, that's going to play into things. So this one is it's going to be done online through Ariba. So that first little box is going to tell you whether or not that's how you're going to be doing your bid. So a good starting place, figure out how. This is all important. Read it. Always read the whole solicitation document. Like I said, we are going to skip through parts of it, most of it. So the next thing is under this. This is a whole page of instructions to you. very helpful. Inquiries, something to be aware of. We always are super supportive of the question period. We think it's great. It's a great opportunity to get that clarification. Do be aware if the tender is on Ariba, you will be submitting questions through Ariba. It's going to be under this event messages in Ariba. If you email, there could be, if whoever you email is having a bad day, it could result in being disqualified from that tender. Not always, but just be aware that you're following all the instructions for that. If it's in Ariba, probably ask the question through Ariba to avoid getting into any kind of trouble. We won't get too much into this either, but be aware, something to know about is that there are recourse mechanisms if you don't feel like your bid was evaluated fairly, or you just disagree with the judgment on that. There are avenues to explore that further. We don't expect that to happen. We have Thomas and Daphne and a whole other crew on that side that does a great job, but that is an option for you. And more instructions, how you're going to prepare it. All very good things to know. This we will, I'm hoping that there's a little bit of time at the end. This is one of the, it's called the SAC manual. Thomas, what does it stand for? Clauses and conditions.
Standard acquisition clauses and conditions.
Thank you so much. So that is it's basically a manual of all of the clauses that relate to these codes. So they're all on BindCell, they are available, you can find them. I'm hoping we have a little bit of time to look into those further, just to show you how to look into those codes more, in case or they are important, so to be able to understand those fully. But yeah, so you'll see some of these, it's a code basically. I think this is actually a link, so you can click on it, which is even handier. Then next I will again, Thomas will go through the evaluation side of things. I will leave that to the experts. But what is the next part? Oh, this integrity provision is also something that worries some people. Keyword here is if applicable. So you will be asked to provide that if it's needed. So yeah, that we've had some people concerned about that part, filling in that form and all that. It is keyword if applicable. So to what we're looking at next, we are looking at, oh, this is the same one. Is that the same one? No, it's not. Declaration of that one. Yeah, anyways, regardless, if applicable, with these integrity provisions. And then down. So these are more clauses. This is all, again, don't skip over it when it's you. Make sure you're reading all of it. As you can see, they're kind of just hidden in there, and it's really important information. So don't skip over it, but I'm going to. So this is, again, one of the clauses in this solicitation document in particular. Shipping and delivery is included. So part of this is that the goods, so trailers, are to be delivered, duty paid to this specified location. So if you're going, I build great trailers, but I don't have a truck, or I don't have any way to transport them, that is going to be an issue. So know about that in advance, so you can make arrangements for that. And so you can also work that cost into your bid. Like maybe you come in way under everybody else because you didn't factor in delivery and shipping. So and it's a clause, it's not a negotiable thing. It's in there, it's something that is a requirement of the tender. So it's not like, the 11th hour, you'd be like, well, come pick them up. That's not part of it. So be aware of how delivery and possession works and is going to work, so that you don't end up in a bit of a sticky situation when you realize now all of a sudden you have to transport all these. So.
And Stephanie,
Yes.
is that again one of those situations where perhaps, shipping and delivery is not in your wheelhouse as a business owner, where you could consider partnering with somebody that actually has a shipping company for this bid, especially if you get it and you know how much that you've put into there for the cost of it, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. This is a great opportunity for subcontracting, for using those connections within your network. That's a great time for that. Obviously, you don't want to let this get in the way of competing, but you want to be aware that that's going to be something you have to factor in and make arrangements for. So yeah, that was just something else. Reading through it that I wanted everyone to be aware of. How do I make it not that? I want it normal. There we go. These are your contracting authorities. Again, that'll be listed all over. This is too big. No, I guess there's no in between. All right, that's fine. Next. What was the next one? Prices.
And Stephanie, it's
Yes.
Kathy again. I just wanted to know, is somebody that's putting a bid together, would they be able to contact the contract authority directly to ask questions about the bid? Or is that something that better should go to you or Thomas?
Yeah, so PAC is not able to help with the actual composition of the bid, for two reasons. One being we don't always have good information. We are not trailer experts. You are if you're submitting a bid for one. So if we give you information, it might not be right. And the other thing is, if it is right, now you have information that the next guy doesn't. So for that reason, PAC is really all about that. Hey, have you heard of government procurement? Up until being bid ready is what we call it, and then you're submitting. In that same thing, the contracting authority isn't going to help you with the formatting or with kind of putting that all together. They are going to help more with questions specific to the tender. So, not so much, hey, should I put this on this line or the next, but does the color of the trailer doesn't need to be painted or not, or like that. They're going to be answering those types. So in terms of putting the actual bid together, you are mostly on your own. Phone a friend, call your mom, to business partners, people like that will be able to help you and hopefully have some industry knowledge. But I mean, Thomas, jump in if you guys do help with that. I don't believe you do. So, yeah. Does that answer that, Kathy?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect, because I know that as you get further into this process, when it starts to get real, when you're creating the bid, that little bit of panic starts. So you just want to know, who to go to. And that's a very clear explanation of why PAC cannot help you with that. But it also is sort of another hint to everybody out there today that, having a good, strong, diverse network of people that you can talk to about this. And as you mentioned, this is our third session. So there are people, that we've met in the last two sessions that might be able to kind of, direct you in the right direction. So no, perfect answer. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Stephanie.
Thank you, Kathy. The This one, again, we won't spend a lot of time. Priority of documents. In case of confusion, in case there's conflicting information, there is a section that tells you I don't know what you call it, the priority document. So in case one of these has different information than the one above it, take the one above it. So good to know, again, in case of confusion, like Kathy was saying, as you're getting into that bid and going, this doesn't make sense, there is a little section in case of that. Again, we have Thomas and Daphne doing this, so there's probably no mistakes ever, but in the odd event. Okay, I will wrap up quickly and pass it on. The other one, this is my favorite part. This is what I tell people to go to right off the bat. Before you get into the rest of the 20 some pages is just the statement of work. And that is always Annex A. It is a 1-page, sometimes 2-page, screenshot basically of everything that needs to be included. So this is the requirement. This is like all the specifics. This is basically everything. So you can see the tender in Canada buys, you can click on it, you can go Annex A, this looks good, and then start reading through the rest of it. But if you spend a whole bunch of time going page by page and then getting to the bottom and going, oh, that's way too many. We could only make 5, not 30. Never mind. You don't want to put that time in. Like Kathy was saying, it is a time-intensive process. It is a process you want to be able to save time wherever you can, and kind of use those resources as smart as you can. So this is a way to do that, taking just a once-over look of what is required, how it's supposed to be made. It needs, aluminum here and suspension here and all that sort of stuff. I don't like that it does that. So that is awesome. A really great place to start if you're a trailer provider. So with that, I will pass you off to Thomas. Like I said, I am very, very available. So let's take advantage of him while we have him here, and I will stop screen sharing. He will start and we will be on our way. I'm sorry, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I will kind of go through those as we go, and then whatever we don't get to on the way, we will get to at the very end, but just in the name of efficiency, we will keep those just in the chat and not jump in too much, hopefully.
Yeah,
all right,
so
Thomas, all yours.
Can all of you hear me okay? Yeah, and see my screen as well?
Yes,
Hopefully
sir.
this worked. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, my name is Thomas Abef. Here helping me, we have Daphne Yu. Actually, I really want to thank Daphne. She's the one who created this wonderful PowerPoint, which even has transitions, if you believe it or not. Pretty incredible. So today we'll be going over some best practices. And also before we start, I just wanted to recognize that Daphne and I, we work in Vancouver. So we're situated on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we're grateful to be on this territory. And yeah, let's start our little presentation here. So bidding best practices, the best practice there is first is to ask questions. So we highlighted the section here so you can see inquiries. It is very important that you ask any questions if you're unsure about the requirement. So there's basically 2 types of questions. You have your technical questions, which are the most important. If, example, in that trailer, like Stephanie said, it doesn't mention it needs to be painted, but usually trailers are painted. Ask us, does the trailer need to be painted? If so, which color? Then we'll be able to forward that to our client, get an answer to you, and then we'll be able to modify our requirement. Often we work with our clients who are technical experts in what we buy normally, but sometimes they have a lot of files, they have a lot of work to do, they go quickly. So even themselves, they may not prepare the perfect requirement. So as Stephanie said earlier, you look at the requirement and the statement, usually it's Annex A, statement of requirement or statement of work. And sometimes in there, you'll see some issues. It doesn't make sense. Some things don't add up. We make mistakes. Stephanie was so kind saying we don't make mistakes. We do. We're human. We're not perfect. So we do make mistakes. And often industry will notice them. Industry are even more experts than we are most of the time, not always, but most of the time industry are more experts than we are in the goods that we're buying. So any discrepancies, any concerns, ask them early on, because once that 7-day period has passed, or 5-day, it depends per tender, when that period passes, we may not have time to answer the question. And then after the solicitation closes, any questions or any mistakes that you notice, we won't be able to address them at that point. So really make sure to ask all of your questions. You can even provide suggestions on how we can improve our requirement. Put those in before the date that's indicated here. Again, it varies per solicitation. In your questions, also try to identify anything that's proprietary, because we don't want to share that with the public. We may know it and then we'll remove it, but if we don't know it and you don't identify it, we may share your proprietary information with Canada. We prefer not to do that, so make sure to identify it. Also, try to not include information that can really identify you as a bidder. We'll remove it before we send it to our client, but to make sure that it's fair, because that's our main job for Daphne and I, is to ensure that the procurement process is fair, transparent, and open, and is done with integrity. So we'll remove information as to not sort of bias the answers of our clients. But if you can try to not include them, that's great. And yeah, ask a question. It says here at the bottom, inquiries not submitted in the form of a question may not be answered. Sometimes we just get comments or just statements. Make sure to ask a question, or else we won't be able to help you. Stephanie said earlier, you can send them by email. It will depend on the requirement. And with SAP Ariba, we really want to use those event messages. So like Stephanie said, we won't answer them if they're by email. Depending on the contracting authority, we may be kind and say, hey, send it through SAP Ariba, or we may ignore your question, not purposely, but it may just go in our emails and we miss it. So make sure if it's on SAP Ariba to use the proper platform there, event messages, just in case we miss it. But yeah, we won't purposefully not answer it if we see it. So questions, best bidding practice, ask questions, please do. And then next is to create a bid based on the solicitation and the criteria. Often we'll have mandatory criteria and sometimes we'll have point rated criteria. So it's important that mandatory criteria are all met. If you don't meet a single mandatory criteria, we won't continue evaluating your bid. So make sure that you meet every single criteria. To know if it's mandatory, we'll have a table, but if we don't have a table, if anywhere in the statement of requirement it says must is a mandatory. So if we say you must here include a detailed written narrative that shows how you meet the criterion, well, you must provide that written narrative, unless you have the technical brochures, as we say here. So the bid must demonstrate that it meets each mandatory technical criterion. So anything with a must, you must do it, or else your bid will be non-compliant. So please make sure that you meet every mandatory criteria, and that when you create that bid, that you clearly demonstrate how you meet each mandatory criteria. So here we have examples from this trailer RFP. So here we have four mandatory criteria: must be made of aluminum, must have a torsion axle, et cetera, et cetera. So when we say we want you to clearly state how, we want you to provide those technical specs or a written narrative, and also in the table to identify where that information is. So it's really important that you do this, that you do help us find that information, instead of just saying, like the next slide here, met. If you just say met, it's very difficult for us to deem that you're compliant. If you provided that technical brochure, we will go through your proposal and try to find the information that confirms that you meet. Again, we try to do this process with as much openness transparency and fairness as possible, but we may miss that information. But if you tell us where to look, hey, look at page 13 of our technical specs at point 4, here is where it shows that the trailer is made of aluminum. So if you do that, it will guarantee that you meet all the mandatory criteria, or guarantee that we see that you meet the mandatory criteria. So make sure to really identify where in the technical specs or your written narrative, where and how you meet your mandatory criteria. And then not all requirements, but some requirements have point rated criteria. For example, this trailer one. So point rated criteria will only be evaluated if you meet all mandatory criteria. So make sure you meet all mandatory criteria first, and then continue to the point rated. So here, same thing, identify where in your proposal we can find that you meet the level of points you identify. We will do our own evaluation, but it's always nice if you can say, hey, based on the delivery date, we can deliver between December 1st and March 31st. So we have 5 points. Here is where in our proposal, you can see that that's our delivery timeline. So if, again, you can just, instead of saying met, specify where and how you meet each point rated criteria, it will make the evaluation more thorough and ensure that we see that you meet each criteria. So one other important thing, there's going to be a few more, but a very important thing about your bids is to make sure there's no conditions in your bids. So the first thing we'll do before we even send off your technical proposal to our evaluators is to make sure that there's no conditions. If we ask for something, it must be what we asked for, unless it says should. If we say it should be this, then okay, there can be some variance. But if we say must, you have to give what we're asking, or else we don't want to buy it, and you're going to be rendered non-compliant. So an example here, in the SAO, this was for a hotel requirement of Daphne's. So we asked for 24-hour room service, and we received a bid with this condition. We do not offer 24-hour room service, but we have on-site dining, and we're able to take out orders between the hours of this time and this time. We appreciate that this bidder tried to find a solution to be compliant, but we asked for this 24-hour room service, so you're non-compliant. But if this bidder would have asked this question during that inquiry period at the start, maybe my client, well, Daphne's client would have said, oh, well, actually, yeah, that's good enough for us. We don't need 24-hour service as long as we have something like this. And then we could have modified our solicitation. So again, it always goes back to the inquiries. But this was, oh, here's the bouncy part. Compliance alert. So again, I think there's a compliance alert here. So paving a parking lot and then hotel accommodations. Here for the paving a parking lot, another example of Daphne's is that the bidder included the warranty excludes cracks, petroleum damage, and normal wear and tear. So we wanted the warranty that covered everything. The bidder proposed this. Non-compliant is a condition to the bid. If they had proposed it before, again, maybe we could have looked at it. Maybe it would have been okay, but it wasn't. So the bidder was non-compliant. Another example, I think this is the same one as the first hotels, but this bidder provided, here we're asking, I don't know if you can see under type of room, we ask for a single or a double. They provide 1 king room and 2 queen rooms in 1 bedroom suite. It's not what we're asking for, non-compliant there, but also there's a condition at the bottom here. No rooms are held yet. Availability is subject to change. When you bid to Canada, what you're bidding must be available. It can't be changed. So that's a condition, and unfortunately, it renders you non-compliant. So yeah, ask questions. Make sure not to include conditions. I guess another condition I would just like to add verbally, maybe is often we see it in the basis of payment. So the basis of payment is a portion of the bid where we say, this is how we're going to pay you. Please put your prices here. We'll use those prices to evaluate you. Often we'll see conditions that say like price is valid for 30 days. There's a condition, you're out, I'm sorry, or the price is only acceptable if you buy 500 units. Well, we say we expect to buy 500 units, but we may buy less. We have certain contracts, solicitations like that. So if we say 500, but we may buy less, and you say you must buy 500, unfortunately, that's a condition, and you'll be eliminated. So make sure not to put any conditions anywhere, but especially not on the basis of payment, but not anywhere. Ask questions beforehand. If you don't like our basis of payment, you can say it. Hey, we don't like how you're proposing to pay us. How about you do this structure instead? How about instead of being a per unit, it's a per lot. Per 500 units, we're going to give you this price. Maybe that's doable for Canada. I wouldn't say we're very flexible, but during that solicitation period, we can modify, we can take feedback, and we can ameliorate our solicitation process. So things we check in our bids, in addition to you being mandatory, to you completing your basis of payment fully, we'll verify that any certifications are included. As Stephanie went through earlier, the integrity process. If you've committed a crime in the past, declare it. We'll have that in our certifications. If you murdered somebody, apparently it's okay, but if you committed fraud, it's not. But so that's integrity in there. And another certifications, let's say it's a Canadian good content, and we ask that you're a Canadian supplier, show that with your certifications. We'll look at those before the evaluation process. It's important we know who you are. As we were talking about earlier, with the subcontracting of the trailer, that's fine. If you subcontract the delivery of the trailer, it's fine. But let's say you do a joint venture with a delivery company, and you've created this new company, a joint venture. But throughout the bid, sometimes you answer as the trailer company, sometimes you answer as the delivery company. If we're not sure who we're awarding a contract to, we may render you non-compliant. So make sure to clearly identify who you are. So in this case, you're the trailer and delivery JV. But better to subcontract, in my opinion, instead of creating a new company. But anyway, acceptance of terms and conditions. We often have two ways to do this. So we'll have on the cover page, when you sign the cover page, you're accepting our terms and conditions. And sometimes we'll have a Form A, which says who you are, your PBN, who the members of your board of directors are, etc. And then in there, we'll be able to, you'll have to sign off that you accept our terms and conditions. When you do procure with the government of Canada, when you do business with the government of Canada, you're accepting our terms and conditions. If, again, that would be a condition, you say, we don't accept this clause, you would be disqualified. You can propose changes to our clause during the solicitation process, during that inquiry period. But often we don't modify our terms and conditions. Those were set by our legal team, and they're quite rigid. So I would recommend changes more to the requirement than the terms and conditions, but you can try, you're allowed. Ability to meet clearly specified critical delivery schedule. Yeah, if we say you have to deliver by March 31st, but you say you can only deliver by June 1st, then you'll be automatically disqualified. If there's any conditions, and we verify that all documents are included. So this is just an example of.
Thomas,
Yep.
I have a question. I wondered if you could clarify the idea that, if you were to be successful in your bid with the government for a certain, item that you produce, and, that's that. Every time you rebid to provide that item, maybe once a year or once every 6 months, do you still have to check all of the criteria? Like, does it change as things move along, or once you've sort of gotten a bid with, you're kind of pretty sure that maybe you meet all the requirements for bid number 2? Do you understand that one?
Yeah, a little bit. So normally our contracts, let's say we're buying goods, we'll add options into our contracts. So if you do receive a contract with options in it, then you don't need to redo this whole process. We'll just award an amendment to utilize that option to get more goods. But if it's a completely different requirement with a new number, like a new requisition number, and it's a different buyer, then yeah, you have to go through the entire process again. You'll have to resubmit a bid with your prices again and accept the terms and conditions by signing the front page or the Form 8, depending on your type of bid. So even if it's the same good or services, and you've done it before and we're reposting it, then yes, you have to redo everything. So that's why normally, at least in our team, we try to do longer contracts, maybe 3 years, maybe like 1 year and then maybe 2 option years for services, or we'll have a 3-year contract period with options to buy more goods during the 2nd and 3rd year, just because we understand that it's a process for bidders. So we try to make it a reasonable range. We could make it longer, but then it's more difficult for industry to give us prices ahead of time, because we need the prices at the solicitation period. So it can be hard for industry to give us prices 4 or 5 years in the future, especially with inflation right now. It's hard for industry to be able to dictate what the prices will be in the future. So that may be why maybe you've been seeing lately shorter 1-year contracts instead of 3 years. That could be why. But in Venka, we always try to have a decent amount of contract period.
Thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, my pleasure. So financial evaluation, just quickly, we have our basis of payment. Ensure that you complete the basis of payment, where we say, example here, it would be unit price. There's a quantity of 4. Will give us our unit price for this trailer, and then during our evaluation, we'll do ×4, and then we'll add them up. This is just to show what it sort of looks on our side for a simple requirement like this, but make sure that your basis of payment is completed. Every line item is completed. If it's not, you could be rendered non-compliant. So yeah, make sure that you read those clauses carefully. Evaluation summary is just to show again from our side of things what it would look like. So we want to make sure that the bid form is completed and signed. There's a technical bid attached. The basis of payment is complete. Yes, yes, yes. Were the mandatory criteria met? Yes. Here the point rated. This person received 60 points and then 53 points. The first one was evaluated at $5,000, the other at $6,000. So the lowest cost per point, which was in this case the method of selection used, it can be the lowest cost, it could be the best value, so 60% technical, 40% cost, opposite, 40% cost, 60% technical, etc. Yeah, this one was the lowest cost per point for the trailer. So this person, because they had more, this company, because they had more points and the lower costs, they won with the $83.33 per point. So just to close up here, we have bidding best practices. So do start early, do understand how to read a solicitation document, reach out to PAC, get some information from them early on. They'll be there to help you for that. Make sure you meet all the requirements, look at that statement of requirement, make sure you can provide what we're asking for. Follow the instructions exactly as we say. So if we say a must, you must provide it. It's a should, okay, maybe not, but if we say must, you must provide it. Ask questions early on, throughout, and until the last day. Even if we're past those 7 calendar days, you can ask your question. We may miss it, we may have time to answer it, but just always ask questions, please. Very important. Create a bid based on the solicitation and check for compliance against our instructions in the evaluation criteria. So don't do this, don't miss information. Do not make any assumptions about things that aren't in the RFP. Talk about irrelevant skills. I can't say this word. Skills or experience to the requirement. Include conditions in your bid. Forget to ask questions. Copy and paste the same bid for every tender, and not demonstrate that your bid meets the mandatory criteria. So yes, this is it. We have 15 minutes left for questions. I was 5 minutes over. I do apologize. Please ask questions now too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. We have one from Nicholas, and it's, do you have any bid templates for businesses? Is there a significant difference if you're submitting a bid for a product or service?
Yeah, so we don't have any bid templates per se. It will depend on the team, the region, the commodity, the good. But in Venka recently, we've been including what we call like a Form A. So the Form A will be who the company is, what your number is, who the board of director is, etc. And then Form B are the mandatory endpoint rated criteria. So we say we say exactly, this is it. You comply, yes or no. Where in your bid you comply. And then our basis of payment, that's your financial bid normally. So in theory, most of the time, all of the documents are included in the solicitation document that they can be used for you, but it's not a template per se, but they're there for you to use. So it will help you build that bid. One thing I should say, talking about bid, often we see like a lot of extra information. We'll see like, oh, our company was created 25 years ago. We're a smart team of people and we work together to create a better place for Canadians. We love that information, but we throw it away. I feel bad saying it, but if it's not a mandatory requirement, if we don't say all of this, so I understand you have a really great company, but does it affect the trailer that we're buying? No, so we won't look at it, and it takes time for evaluators to go through that. If we get 5 bids and we get 20 pages of how great the company is, we don't look at it. So I would say really focus on what we're asking for. Follow, as we said, the instructions exactly. You must provide this information. You must meet these criteria, and that's what we'll be evaluating.
And Thomas, I just have a short question about if you could put yourself in the business owner's shoes. They're busy, they're producing something, etc., on a day-to-day basis, but they're very interested in doing this bid. Would you suggest that? Who would you suggest on this person's team would actually do the bid? Like, would it be the accountant? Would it be their bookkeeper? Would it be their controller? Or sort of like the question before, are there people out there that prepare government bids for you? You know, like, could you subcontract that to somebody if you gave them the information?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure there are companies out there. I'm not sure they're allowed to be used. I'm not sure. I would need to verify because I remember seeing something in our clauses saying that it can be used, but I shouldn't comment on that. I will not comment. I will review and come back on that. In terms of who in the business, so larger companies often will have a proposal team. So it's a team just dedicated to create those bids. In smaller teams, I would recommend, I'm not a business owner, but if I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, I would recommend creating a team of people to create that bid. So you must have somebody who's more of a technical expert that can answer those technical questions. And then to pricing, then maybe your finance team will be able to determine sort of what a better and fair price is for yourself. And then you'll probably need the owner or a director to sign off on your bid. So I would recommend creating a team, but I'm not a business owner, so I can't give complete recommendation on how to do that.
Thank
We
you.
did actually at PAC just talk to this woman who is a professional, I don't know if it's underwriter specifically, but her business is writing RFPs. So again, if there's a clause about it, she was certified and like has done courses and all this approval in the States. So, but like, yeah, that's her business model is bids. So it exists, absolutely, but there might, like Tom said, there might be something in the details about who is able to sign it and who's able to authorize it. There's another one which is probably going to be the last question, and it is, can I send a medical device product bid to the government, and what is the cost?
I guess it depends on the requirement. So you'll have to really look on Canada Buys if your product is in demand, if there's a RFP or RFSO, if there's a solicitation document for your device, then yeah, of course, you can provide that to the government of Canada. The cost is free. There's no cost to use SAP Ariba. Please do sign up, even if you aren't currently selling to the government of Canada, you can register as a supplier. You can put in your UNSPC, or before it was a GSIN, so your code saying what type of goods or services your company offers, and you'll get all of the solicitation documents that sort of meet what your goods and services are. So if you do that, then you'll be able to know when a medical device is required, and then you can submit a bid.
And Thomas and Stephanie, I just have another question about, you mentioned last time that there is a lower level of procurement where somebody can actually, in the government, could, pay for some of your product and service on a credit card. It's up to $20,000 or something like that. Would you suggest that business owners that are new to this process might want to kind of scale their involvement in it, like perhaps starting with the trying to get a bid for the $20,000 thing and then move their way up? I just am curious.
I would say yes and no, but because it's very rare that we say you must have government experience. So it's pretty rare that it's something we look for. We try to be as open as possible. Some requirements, like for environmental services, often you do need to have experience on government land, doing government type of work. So then maybe that would be helpful. But for most goods and services, we don't really need that past experience with government of Canada. I guess it could be helpful to know how it is to work with the government of Canada. That's sort of the bureaucracy, maybe the forms you need to submit to get paid and whatnot. But you'll always be paid. That's why it's great to do business with the government of Canada. You'll always be paid. It may be a bit more annoying than with private, but you'll definitely be paid. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know if it will help you get bids. It will just help you get experience maybe with dealing with the government of Canada.
Great, thank you.
And I do just want to jump back to the question before this, which was about the medical devices. The key point of Thomas's answer was if there is a requirement. Yeah. So if you, and we've talked about this a lot with other suppliers, is them going, Canada should 100% buy this thing. This is the best invention ever. They need it. We're like, okay, but apparently they don't. So if there is no active requirement, there's no one, and you put a whole bid together and you send it in to somebody, it's not really going to happen. That's where you're better off going through the government directory, finding someone, contacting them directly, see if they want to buy it, like going through it that way and seeing if you can get more of one of those credit card purchases. It's probably not going to be a competitive procurement. If there is no active requirement, if no one's looking for it, then sending in your bid is not gonna get you very far.
Stephanie, we've got about 5 minutes left, so yes. If you want to do one more question, then we can kind of
wrap up. Let's do, does Procurement Canada or different government departments maintain a preferred list of suppliers? And can you provide any insight into the percentage of selected companies that come from that list of known suppliers?
Can I answer this?
Perfect.
Yeah, the answer is no, we don't. We do have certain requirements, like a supply arrangement, where we pre-approve companies to be able to be on this list. And then when we have that requirement, we'll issue an RFP. I think in real property contracting, they have a similar process where you're sort of pre-approved onto this system. I think it's called Select. I may be wrong. But normally, no, we don't have a preferred list of suppliers. We really want to be as open and transparent as possible. So we'll post all of our requirements on Canada Buys. If it's there, it's open to everybody. It's whoever offers the best bid, which meets our criteria in that situation, and our basis of selection. If it's the lowest price, then we want the lowest price good that meets our criteria. If we want the best value, then we want the best good we can for the price that we want. So yeah, it's it's really open to everybody. And the only way to be on the list of suppliers is to be on that supply arrangement. Or if there's a like emergency contract, then we may do like a RFQ or request for quotes, and then you'll be added to a list. But those are only for like one requirement.
Okay, well, thank you so much, you guys. I'm going to kind of stop sharing your screen and go to my screen. But yeah, so such great insights today that we haven't had previously. So it's nice to see a really great progression going on. So I want to thank you, panelists today. Stephanie, wonderful. Thomas, thank you very much. Daphne, again, for everybody on the call today or the session, Stephanie's email information, contact information will be provided in the email that follow-up that you're going to get. So don't worry, you know, if you think of a question in the middle of the night tonight, Stephanie will probably be able to answer, as well as Thomas. Thank you so much, both of you, or all of you. And I just want to mention too that there's some things coming up today or later this month. We're doing a webinar called Business Planning with the Business Model Canvas. And of course, we're doing the last session in this PAC series on August 24th, Strong Bid, Smart Growth, How to Supply Goods and Services to the Government. And then starting September 14th, we're talking more about business planning. It's back to school time, and doing a business plan is one of those things that you do to make sure you're on the right track. So I just want to remind everybody today as well, we're going to do a feedback poll just to make sure that this sort of webinar is what you'd like to see from WeBC. So Jen will launch the poll. It will just take a couple of, we'll do it for a couple of minutes. We'd love for you to participate. And as I mentioned earlier in the session, if any of you have like a burning sort of desire to be taught something in a session, throw in a title there, you know, something that you'd like to learn more about. And that's why we do these feedback polls, is because we want to know what is, you know, interesting to you and what would you learn more about, you know. So thank you very much for doing that. I want to also remind everybody to go to our website, contact us, you know, hello@WeBC. You'll reach us in client service. We've got a toll-free number. You can see us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So that's great. And lastly, I just want to say goodbye to everybody today. What a great session. You know, the information was new and fresh. And for all of you that are getting sort of the organization and everything in place to be able to do a bid, we look forward to seeing you next time on the 24th, just to kind of complete this whole process. And thank you again to Daphne and Stephanie and Thomas for such a great session today. So bye everybody, enjoy your day, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Have a nice day. Thank you.